BROLY is one of the most muscular characters in anime history, but how would he do in a modern bodybuilding competition? Hey, how's it going everyone? My name is Devin, and if you're new here, I create all sorts of content on how you can stay fit and healthy from the comfort of your own home. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any content on how you can stay fit and healthy. So let's jump into it. BROLY is an extremely muscular character and he's very well built, and that got me thinking, how would he fare in a modern day bodybuilding competition? So obviously there's a lot of different versions of BROLY, a lot of different forms. I want to just jump straight into his most powerful form, the Legendary Super Saiyan. So let's jump into it because that is his biggest form, and I want to compare that to modern day open bodybuilding. So there are 4 things that every bodybuilder needs to be good. You need to have size, you need to have proportions, you need to have symmetry, and you have to be lean. So that's how we determine if you're a good bodybuilder. So I'll break those down in just a little bit more detail as we look into BROLY himself. So this is the Legendary Super Saiyan form of BROLY, and I use this form in this picture of BROLY, number 1, because it was the highest quality I could find on the internet, and number 2, I think it does a really good job at showing his physique. Now obviously we can't see his legs, we can't see his back, so this will strictly just be an analysis of the front part of his upper body. So as you see, we have size, proportion, symmetry, and leanness, or vascularity. So BROLY definitely has the size. He's not lacking anywhere there. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have to give him a 10 for size. In another video I did on Master Roshi had the size whenever he would bulk up to his huge form, but he didn't necessarily have great proportions. BROLY, on the other hand, seems to have amazing proportions. And what I mean by that is you can make the argument that he's twisting a little bit here, so his front shoulder looks bigger than his back one. So that's what I'm gonna say here. I'm gonna say they're actually about the same size. He's got a big width at the top, and then he has a big V taper, right? So you see a good V taper going down. That adds to the proportions and the symmetry part. We see his shoulder is not overpowering his biceps and his triceps, and vice versa, his triceps and biceps aren't overpowering his delts. Especially from this angle, it looks like everything's very proportional. You can see his chest is wide and thick. And on top of that, if you look at his latissimus dorsi down here, it's massive and creates that illusion that makes his arms stick out even further. All of these things look great. They're all huge. His abs are pretty ripped. He's not got a lot of serratus right in here. It could just be this picture, but his serratus aren't showing very well. So we'll get to that in just a second. But as far as proportions, we can see because of his delts, because of his arms, because of his chest and his lats, because of the size of all of those are about the same, he actually has really good proportions too. So I'm gonna give him a 9 out of 10 on that. So now we come to symmetry, which means basically, is he the same on both sides? Is one bicep the same as the other? Well, it's hard to tell from this angle in this picture. However, he does look very symmetrical. His chest looks the same on both sides. His abs are almost identical. His arms, his shoulders stick out. He looks very symmetrical. So I'm gonna give him a 9 out of 10. I would give him a 10 if we could see more, if we had a better angle. From this picture specifically, we see a 9 out of 10. So then we go into his leanness. So obviously BROLY is extremely lean. And when you're drawing characters, it's hard to draw just a little bit of body fat. So even if a character was like 7% body fat, you wouldn't see like a huge difference there. Now I did notice because his serratus isn't showing right here, and we don't really see a lot of vascularity in his biceps. We don't see any veins or anything like that running through his body. We can actually assume that he's probably not quite as lean as he probably could be. A lot of times in professional bodybuilding, you'll see these massive veins going down people's arms, going down their chest, their legs, and we just don't see any of that here. We also don't see a whole lot of feathering. You've got a little bit of feathering in his chest, forearms, and that shows that he is extremely lean. But because I don't see any vascularity, I can't give him a super high rating, so I'm gonna go with a 6 on this one. So overall, I give BROLY a 34 on this scale. So now if we go over to Big Ramy, we can look at these exact same things. You don't get the name Big Ramy without being massive. This guy walks around on stage around 300 pounds typically. So he is definitely a 10 out of 10 on size. Keep in mind, this is just from one single picture. Now in actual bodybuilding, you would go through 7 compulsory poses. And if we had BROLY in all 7 of those poses, that would make this video so much easier. But since we don't, I'm just going based on one pose for each of them. So proportion wise from this picture, he looks extremely proportional to me. The only thing is, I wish he had a little bit of a smaller waist, a little bit more of a V taper. I wish his lats inserted just a little bit lower and his waist was just a touch smaller. But other than that, looks great. I'm gonna give him an 8. A lot of bodybuilding comes down to genetics on top of extremely hard work. So there's a reason Big Ramy won Mr. Olympia. From this picture, I can't see a lot of symmetry that's out of line. The only things that really come to mind are this arm right here, and again, this could just be from this picture, from this angle, from this lighting, but this arm looks just a little smaller than his left arm. His quads are so massive, and his calves, I'm sure, are massive too, but his quads are just a little bit overpowering right there. So, and then on top of that, we talked about the V-taper and everything. So for this, I'm gonna have to give him an 8 as well. Now we go into the leanness. Now, unlike BROLY, you can see these veins just right there on the bicep, right there on the legs, all over. You can see the feathering right there. All this stuff. So he's extremely lean, extremely vascular. And that's the thing about Big Ramy. He doesn't always come in that kind of condition, this kind of shape, but this is why he won this most recent Olympia, right? I still think he could probably taper it down just a bit. So I'm gonna give him a 9 on this. So overall, we're looking at about a 35 for Big Ramy. And you can see I gave BROLY a 34. Now, before you say anything, know that Big Ramy is the best built man in the world in open bodybuilding, right? So does this mean that BROLY can't compete in bodybuilding? Hell no. BROLY is amazing. The fact that he comes this close, in just my opinion, there's gonna be other people that would put him even higher than Ramy. But the fact that he comes this close, in my own opinion, tells me that he could compete at an elite level at the Mr. Olympia if he wanted to. He's got the size by far. Let's take out the height, the fact that he can turn into like a 9 or 10 foot giant. His muscularity would overshadow anyone's, even Big Ramy's. His proportions are great. His symmetry is great. If he could get that leanness down just a little bit more, at least get a little more vascular, BROLY has the potential to be the best bodybuilder of all time. So in conclusion, could BROLY be a bodybuilder? Absolutely. In fact, he could be the best bodybuilder of all time. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Comment down below and let me know if you think BROLY would be a good bodybuilder and who else you would like to see compete on the bodybuilding stage. And make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any more fitness content. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.